Hello and welcome to this video, which is called How Do I Work with Schema Synchronization in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Lars Lundorf Larsen. I work as Escalation Engineer in Microsoft Dynamics NAV. The purpose of this video is to show how schema synchronization works and to show the improvements in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015 in this area. In NAV 2015, there have been a couple of improvements to make synchronization more granular and to give developers more control over when and how synchronization runs. So before we go back to the changes in NAV 2015, let's have a look at what is schema synchronization. Basically, it's the process of synchronizing the NAV table definition to the SQL Server. So on this slide on the left hand side, we talk about the NAV table, talk about metadata and table definition. Whereas on the right hand side on the SQL Server, we talk about the SQL table schema. So the process of synchronizing from NAV table definition to SQL table schema is the schema synchronization. This is not a new feature. It's been there ever since the first NAV SQL option. We have always synchronized the table definition to the SQL Server. What is new is that since NAV 2013 R2, schema synchronization is now running on the NAV server and not directly on the development client anymore. In Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2013 R2, schema synchronization was designed to run automatically in the background and you would never have to worry about it. This was typically triggered by any connection to the NAV server. NAV server would then check is there anything to synchronize, and then it would start doing that automatically. So this worked very well in almost every single case, but there could be cases where you wouldn't want schema synchronization to happen automatically. For example, if you were making big changes to very large tables, in which case synchronization could run for a very long time. So to address those, now in NAV 2015, schema synchronization runs on demand. So it only runs when we explicitly tell the NAV server to run schema synchronization. The ways to synchronize table changes is either per table for individual table or tables, if you highlight a number of tables, either saving a table from Table Designer or save as, or if you compile or delete tables. This is the way of synchronizing individual tables. Then we got some ways of synchronizing for all tables. We have a new option called Sync Schema for all tables on the Tools menu. This will synchronize all tables, not a filtered list of tables, but all tables. Also, when we import a FOB file now, and the FOB file contains tables, then it will prompt you to synchronize all tables. So let me show how this works. So now I'll go into the development environment, and first I'll make a small design change on a table. Let's say I'll create a new field. So now I edit a field to my table. I do Control S of file, I do File Save. And then you will see we have a new Save dialog that comes up. This Save dialog will only come up when we're saving changes to table objects. Page, reports, and other object types, it will behave exactly as before. But when we save a table, then it will show the options we have for synchronizing this object. So the options are now, with validation, later, or force. So for now, I'll just synchronize right away and say OK, and the table is saved. As you will see, this is no different to the way it used to be. And as a developer, you can do Control S, click OK or hit enter button and save the object just as before, and the table will be saved and synchronized to the SQL Server. The questions is, what if we make a change which is destructive? So if I delete a field now, for example, delete, and then this time let's hit escape, save dialog comes up, I say yes, I want to save this, then we will see it behaves slightly differently now. Because it is detected that the following destructive changes were detected, which is field 55001, which was deleted. And it doesn't matter if there's actually any data, it's enough that the change is potentially destructive. So when we have a situation like this is when we can use a force option. Force option means that I decide I want to do this change. I know the data, which may or may not be in this field, is not needed. So I just want to force this change. So this is now the option that the developer has to just force through the option. Any data that doesn't fit into the new table definition will just be deleted. Before, this was not possible, so we would have to manually run some code or manually delete all conflicting data before we could delete this field in every single company. So now I can just say, okay, I want to force this. I take the responsibility and I'll delete any data that doesn't fit, and the change is done now. So this will happen also if I just decrease the field length from say 28 to 27. Even if there's no data in this field, then it will not allow me to synchronize directly. I have to either force or design an upgrade code unit. I'll show upgrade code units a little bit later, but otherwise I can just force the change through, and then the change will be done. Later option means that I will save the table definition and the metadata, but I will synchronize the schema later. It's important to notice that later option doesn't mean that we take the decision later. It means that we already decide now to save this table definition, but we just won't synchronize it to SQL Server later. So it doesn't mean that I have an undo action, that I can undo the changes I just did. It means I save the changes, but the synchronization will take place later. I can also decide to synchronize table changes from this menu. Synchronize schema for all tables, and I can do check only with validation or force. Synchronize with force option, and this will then force any changes to be synchronized in SQL Server. And again, this runs for all tables for any changes. So those are the options we have now for synchronizing individual tables or synchronizing multiple changes. And just a summary, options are now, later, and force. And there's one more thing to add to this, is a now option. A force option of course require the NAV service tier to be running and accessible from the development client. The later option can be run in a standalone mode when there's no access to a NAV service tier. But the now and force, because synchronization is run on the service tier, they will require a service tier to be running on the database. So destructive table changes would be any of the following. So basically anything that may cause the data to not fit into the new structure the way that you have changed it. In this case, you must either use a force synchronization, as I showed you, or you can run an upgrade code unit that has the instructions for how to do it, for how to handle data. The idea of an upgrade code unit is that a code unit of type upgrade, as is shown here, will get automatically triggered as part of the synchronization process. So the NAV service tier detects that it will be synchronizing a table. Then it will check, is there any upgrade code units to handle this table? And if there is, then it will run that. In this database, I have a small add-on called Vehicle Management. So I have a table here, table 50,000. If I run this, we should see that I have one record in this table, and every field has got data in it. So also notice that the table here has got 7 fields in it, fields 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say in this situation I receive a upgrade to this add-on. So I import my upgraded objects and replace all. And notice that my new version of this add-on includes a new code unit to be created, which is the upgrade code unit. Say OK to this. And this is also the new dialog box you will get when you import an object that contains tables, one or more tables. And this is basically where you decide again which synchronization method to use. Now, data or force, and I say yes to that. Now, synchronization process is running, and it completes 100%, and it leaves the database in operational state, which is good. So now if I design this table again after I imported it, remember before it had 7 fields, now we only have 3 fields, so 4 fields were deleted. In previous versions that this would not have been possible, but it's possible now because remember the new version came with an upgrade code unit, and if we look at this code unit and properties, we'll see it's set to be an upgrade subcode code unit, and this code unit contains instructions for this table, what to do in case of destructive table changes. And the instruction here is just to copy data into a similar table, into table 50,010. So what happened here was that we imported the new version, which has got destructive changes, and then the synchronization process automatically triggered the upgrade code unit, then to move any data into a new table that we have here. So this is the alternative options of implementing destructive table changes. So we can either force them through, or we can do it via upgrade code units. Then we have the option of synchronizing from PowerShell as well. And the new options here is one, that we have the options of check only, force sync or sync. And also we now have the new commandlets of import NAV application objects and delete and compile, where we also have the options here of forcing or syncing only or to check. And what I'll show here is I'll make a table change. So I'll reduce field length again a little bit and then set it to synchronize later. So I now have a table that has been updated but not synchronized. For the sake of this demo, let me make a couple of more changes. So I've already added a couple of fields in these 2 next tables. So what I'll do is I'll delete a couple of fields and sync later. And next table, delete field F4 and again sync later. So now my database is definitely not synced at all. 2 things to note about this. One is here I've got the client running and it's still running. This was not possible before because, as I mentioned in the beginning, NAV service here would try to synchronize as soon as any client tried to connect, and then the synchronization would fail. So the way it is now is that the database can still be operational, but just with some sync missing. So the client will run fine until I actually try to access any of the tables that are not synchronized. And the ways to find out in a situation like this, again, to work out what tables are not synchronized, would be either from the development environment, we could just force through a synchronization, or we have an option also in PowerShell. So in PowerShell, I'll show you if I just import the NAV admin tool, and then I will run this sync NAV tenant with mode check only. And we will see also this is a new behavior. Before it was synchronized. Now we got the added modes of check only or force. And if we run this from PowerShell, then it will show each table which is not synchronized, table 7, 8, 9, and it will show you which actions has been done, which has not been synchronized yet. After this, it even gives you some examples of code to create upgrade code units, as I showed before, which you can copy and paste into an NAV code unit. So that's the notion we have now of a database being operational, but synchronization pending. So as a summary, now in NAV 2015, schema synchronization is performed on demand. So it gives us control over when we run it. It's more granular, so just because one table can't synchronize, it doesn't block everything else. And we've opened it up to automatically trigger upgrade code units, so it gives us some more flexibility of how to handle table changes. Thank you for watching this, and for more information you can follow this link to the Microsoft Dynamics NAV Getting Ready page. Thank you.